There's a particular kind of stillness that falls over the city at night. Not the silence of peace, but the breathless pause before something breaks. I come to recognize it during my years on the force, that eerie quiet that settles over the streets, the way even the wind seems to hold back. It was on such a night that the impossible began. My breath fogged against the windshield as I sat in the patrol car, fingers wrapped around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the glass. Beside me, Rex shifted, alert even in rest, his ears perked and eyes trained on the alleyway across from us. He was always like that, still as stone, but aware of everything. In some ways, he was more of a cop than I'd ever be. I reached out and ruffled his fur, the thick ridge along his neck warm beneath my glove. "You smell something, boy?" I asked softly. He didn't answer, of course, but he didn't have to. His gaze never wavered, fixed and unwavering like a sentinel. He had that look, the one that meant trouble wasn't far off. Dispatch crackled to life on the radio. Unit 42, reports of a break-in at 145 Elm. Possible armed suspect on site. Proceed with caution. I met Rex's eyes. "Let's go," I said, and he leapt to his feet with a silent grace, ready, always ready. I threw the cup aside and turned the key in the ignition. The engine stirred, headlights slicing through the night as we pulled away from the curb. The streets blurred past, the city sleeping or pretending to, while we chased down something that hadn't yet shown its face. It was supposed to be a routine call, nothing more. I'd said those words 1,000 times before, worn them like armor against the uncertainty of every shift. Just a routine call. No one ever expects the night to change them. But some nights aren't meant to be forgotten. As we sped through the empty streets, the sirens remained silent. I learned not to announce myself unless I had to. There was power in silence, an advantage in the element of surprise. Rex sat tall in the passenger seat, muscles coiled, ears flicking at every sound. His presence grounded me, as it always did, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Elm Street loomed ahead, shadowed and still. I cut the engine and let the car coast to a stop a block away from the address. The house in question stood like a dark sentinel among the others, lights out, windows shuttered, but with a strange kind of weight to it, like it was holding its breath. I stepped out of the car, the air sharp against my face, and gave Rex the signal. He followed close, paused silent against the pavement, his body low and tense. We approached the house with caution, senses sharpened by training and instinct. My hand hovered near my weapon, heart thudding in my chest, not out of fear but focus. This was the work. This was the life. As we neared the door, I caught it, the faintest sound, a floorboard creaking inside, the whisper of movement. Rex froze, nose twitching, eyes locked on the entrance. Something was wrong. I could feel it like a charge in the air, buzzing against my skin. And that was when the night began to turn. The front door was ajar, just slightly, just enough to whisper a warning. A good cop learns to read the language of silence, the stories told in small details, a door that should be closed, a light that should be off. As I reached for the handle, my fingers hovered, not touching it yet, feeling the cold seeping from inside. Rex was still as stone at my side, every muscle ready to spring. He let out a low growl, barely audible, but sharp enough to cut through the night. I gave the silent hand signal to hold, then eased the door open with the slow care of someone who knows that each second might be their last. The hinges groaned softly, a tired sound, like they too wanted nothing to do with what waited inside. The house was swallowed in darkness, broken only by the flicker of a dying hallway bulb, its light stuttering like a failing heartbeat. My boots made no sound on the wooden floor, but my own breath felt deafening in my ears. I moved forward, gun drawn, flashlight beam slicing through the dark in narrow arcs. Rex stayed close, his paws ghosting across the ground, head low, eyes burning. I trusted him more than any man, his instincts honed to something sharper than reason. He could sense danger before it had a name. We cleared the front room, each step slow and measured, and moved into the narrow hallway. The air felt thicker there, stale and heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then movement. A shadow flicked past the end of the hall, fast, vanishing into the darkness of what I assumed was the kitchen. I tapped my radio once. No words, just a signal. Backup was en route, but I didn't have time to wait. Not with the unknown slipping deeper into the house. I crept forward, heart hammering now, not from fear but anticipation. Rex tense beside me, his breath steady, his body wound-tight like a spring. The kitchen doorway loomed ahead, a rectangle of darkness. I counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. We moved. I swung around the corner, flashlight flaring, and everything happened at once. A figure lunged from the shadows, a flash of steel in his hand, and a shot rang out, loud and searing. Pain exploded in my side, a white-hot spike that stole the air from my lungs. I hit the ground hard, vision spinning, unable to breathe, the world tilting on its axis. Somewhere, I heard a snarl, deep, primal, and filled with fury. Rex. He launched himself at the attacker, a blur of teeth and power, knocking the man back. My gun clattered from my hand, skidding across the floor, useless. I couldn't move. The pain was too much, spreading like fire, drowning me. From the floor, I watched through a haze as Rex fought. He was relentless, unyielding, a force of nature. But I saw the danger, the man reaching for the gun at his belt, the weapon lifting, aimed at Rex. I tried to shout, to warn him, but no sound came. Just blood in my mouth, the taste of iron and loss. And then, the shot. The world went black. I floated in darkness, somewhere between pain and silence, between memory and oblivion. The cold pressed in around me, seeping into my bones like water, dragging me under. Time had no meaning here. It stretched and broke, slipping through my fingers like smoke. I wanted to let go, to follow the darkness to its end. But something anchored me. A sound, a breath, a low, desperate whimper. Rex. His name echoed in the hollow of my chest, a distant call. I forced my eyes open, the world blurring into dim shapes and shadows. Pain lanced through me, sharp and bright. My hand moved slowly to my side, coming away slick with blood. Too much blood. Across the room, I saw him, Rex, his chest heaving, fur streaked with crimson. He stood between me and the gunman, snarling, teeth bared, but swaying on his feet. There was blood on the floor, smeared and fresh. I couldn't tell whose. The attacker cursed, staggering to his feet, gun trembling in his hand. He aimed again, this time at Rex, fury and fear etched into his face. Stupid mutt, he spat. You should have stayed down. Rex didn't flinch. He lunged. Time slowed. I watched, helpless, as he threw himself at the man with everything he had left. They collided hard, crashing into the counter, the gun firing wild into the ceiling. Rex's jaws locked on the man's arm, dragging him down, refusing to let go. A storm of movement, growls, shouts, the crack of bone. Rex was fighting for me, fighting like he knew that if he failed, I wouldn't make it, that I was already halfway gone. The man screamed, tried to shake him off, but Rex was relentless, his body a weapon fueled by devotion, by instinct, by love. Another shot rang out. Then silence. The man collapsed, face down, unmoving. And Rex stumbled backward, his legs buckling beneath him. He crawled to me, dragging himself across the blood-slick floor, his breath ragged, his eyes searching mine. I reached for him, fingers trembling, and felt his muzzle press into my palm. Good boy, I whispered. You're a good boy. He whimpered once, soft and broken, and laid his head against my chest. That's how the rescue team found us minutes later. 2 wounded soldiers, bound by something deeper than words, holding on to each other in the ruins of that kitchen. They said later it was a miracle. That Rex had done the impossible. That he'd saved me. But I know the truth. He didn't save me because he was trained to. Hospitals have their own kind of silence. Not like the city's tense hush before violence, or the breathless quiet of a darkened room with danger lurking in the corners. No, hospital silence is heavy, soft, filled with the weight of survival and the echoes of those who didn't. I lay there, days blurring into nights, machines humming at my side, pain wrapping around me like a second skin. But none of it mattered. Not the pain, not the uncertainty, not the long road ahead. Because Rex was alive. He was in the room just down the hall, fighting his own battle under the watch of white coats and hushed voices. They told me he barely made it, that the damage was worse than they'd thought. Torn muscles, a shattered leg, blood loss that should have ended him before the night did. But they didn't know Rex. They didn't know what I knew, that he wouldn't leave me, not when I still needed him. Days turned into weeks. I healed slowly, a patchwork of stitches and scars. But my heart, it ached for the sound of his paws in the hallway, for the sight of him by my side, alert and steady, ready to face whatever came. The first time I saw him again, I broke. They wheeled him into my room on a padded stretcher, his body wrapped in bandages, one leg braced in metal. But his eyes, God, his eyes, were the same. Bright, fierce, alive. He lifted his head weakly, and when he saw me, his tail thumped once, twice, against the stretcher. That was all it took. I felt tears slip down my face, unashamed. "You made it, partner," I whispered. He whined softly in response, as if to say, of course I did. I had to. In the months that followed, we both fought our way back together. Physical therapy, long walks that started as short ones, nights where the memories returned in flashes of noise and pain. But through it all, Rex stayed by my side, limping but proud, worn but not broken. He never went back to active duty. Neither did I. Some battles mark you too deeply, leave you too changed. But that didn't matter. We'd served. We'd survived. He lived out his retirement in my home, not as a tool of the force, but as family. As my protector, my miracle. People called me a hero for what happened that night. But I know better. The real hero wore fur and bore scars not just on his body, but in his soul. And every time I looked at him, I remembered. Love doesn't always come in words. Sometimes it comes with teeth bared, a body thrown into fire, and the unyielding will to do the impossible, for someone who means everything. He saved me because he loved me. The hall was packed wall to wall, yet somehow it was quiet. Not silent, but hushed like a sacred space. Officers in pressed dress blues lined the aisles, their badges gleaming under the soft light. Family members, city officials, and civilians sat shoulder to shoulder, a sea of faces, all gathered for one reason, to honor a hero. And at the center of it all, Rex. He stood beside me, his injured leg wrapped in a soft brace, his fur a little grayer than before. But his eyes were sharp, alert, and he held his head high. A black and gold vest had been fitted for him, ceremonial, embroidered with his name and badge number. As he stood on the stage, back straight despite the limp, I could feel the energy shift in the room. The tension, the awe. They weren't looking at a dog. They were looking at a legend. The mayor stepped forward, holding a velvet-lined case, voice steady as it rang out across the room. "Tonight, we honor an officer whose courage transcends instinct, whose loyalty went beyond training. Rex K-9 Unit is hereby awarded the Medal of Valor for extraordinary bravery in the line of duty." Applause erupted, rising like a wave. People stood, officers saluting, civilians clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Rex blinked, ears flicking back as if confused by the sound. But he didn't flinch. He stood tall. The mayor knelt and opened the case. Inside, the metal gleamed, a silver star set against deep blue enamel, his name etched beneath it. She clipped it gently to his vest. I knelt beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. His eyes met mine, and in that moment, the noise faded. There was just us. "You did it, boy," I murmured. "You earned this. You saved my life." His tail thumped once, soft against the floor. Later, after the ceremony, people came to meet him. Children with wide eyes, fellow officers who knelt to shake his paw, families who thanked him, even though they'd never met him before. Rex took it all with quiet dignity, letting them stroke his head, offering a soft lick to outstretched hands. But he never strayed far from me. His place was at my side, always. That medal hangs in my home now, in a place of honor. But I know, and everyone who was there that night knows, it was never about the medal. It was about love, sacrifice, and a dog who did the impossible, not for glory, but for the man who meant the world to him. The porch creaked under my weight as I eased into the old rocking chair, the same one I'd sat in every evening for the last few years. The sun was setting over the hills, washing the sky in amber and rose gold, painting long shadows across the yard. The air smelled like rain, pine, and something softer, memory maybe. Beside me sat a boy, no older than 10, legs swinging over the edge of the step. My grandson. He was fiddling with a worn toy police car, eyes squinting against the light. I watched him for a while before he finally looked up. "Grandpa," he said, "Mom told me you used to be a policeman. A real one." I smiled. "She's right. Did you ever catch bad guys?" I nodded slowly. "A few." He hesitated, then asked, "Did you ever have a dog partner? Like in the stories?" I turned my eyes to the field beyond the porch, where a simple headstone rested beneath an old oak tree. The grass around it grew wild, untouched. The wind stirred the leaves above, whispering secrets I still carried. "I did," I said quietly. "His name was Rex." The boy waited, sensing there was more. "He wasn't just a partner," I continued, voice low and steady. "He was brave, the bravest I've ever known. One night, he did something no one thought possible. He saved me. Risked everything, gave everything. Not because he had to, but because he chose to." The boy's eyes widened. "What happened?" I leaned back in a chair, the rhythm of its movement like a heartbeat. "It's a long story, one filled with danger and pain and love. We went through fire together, he and I, and we came out changed." Silence settled between us, comfortable. The boy looked toward the oak tree. "Is that where he's buried?" I nodded. "That's his resting place. He earned it." He was quiet for a while, then said, "I want to be brave like Rex one day." I reached over, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You will be. Just remember, bravery isn't just fighting. It's loving someone enough to stand by them, no matter what." That's what Rex taught me. The sun dipped lower, and for a moment, I swore I could hear it. The sound of paws on wood, a familiar presence settling at my feet. I didn't need to look. I knew. Some bonds don't fade. They live on, long after the last watch is over. The house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that only comes with time, a stillness wrapped in soft morning light and the rustle of wind through open windows. The old hardwood floors creak beneath my steps, worn down in the same places where paws once padded beside me, always a step ahead or a step behind. Rex is gone now. He passed peacefully, years after that night that changed everything. Old age caught up to him slowly, and I watched as the fierce warrior of my youth became gentler, slower, but never weaker. Even in his final days, there was fire in his eyes, just tempered with peace. He died with his head on my lap, my hand on his back, the way it always had been. I whispered that he was a good boy, the best boy, my hero. I buried him beneath the old oak in the yard, where the sun hits just right in the afternoons. His headstone is simple. It doesn't need to say much. Everyone who knew him remembers what he did, and those who didn't hear the story of the dog who saved a man, who faced down death with nothing but loyalty and teeth, who gave everything and asked for nothing. Every year, on the anniversary, the department sends someone out to place flowers by his stone. Sometimes it's a rookie, unsure of what to say. Sometimes it's an old friend. They stand in silence, pay their respects, and walk away changed. Because Rex wasn't just a dog. He was proof that love, real love, is selfless. That heroism doesn't come with glory or medals, though he had those too. It comes in the moments no one sees. The leap into danger, the crawl across a blood-slick floor, the press of a muzzle to a trembling hand. Now, in the quiet, I walk these rooms and remember. And sometimes, when the light is soft and the wind carries just right, I swear I hear him still. Waiting, watching, guarding me even now. His legacy isn't just the lives he touched or the lives he saved. It's the love that lingers, the footprints that never fade.